one time Thoth came to me and he said, do you know one of the stages that this leads to? And I said, what do you mean? He says, someday you will be a star. And I said, you mean like a rock and roll star or what? No, a real star. Because humans are seeds that become suns. It's one of the levels or steps. You literally become a sun. And it was not long after he was telling me that, and this is out of Scientific American. It was really just, I don't remember when this was, about 1991 or 1992, I think. Last year, I think this was out of, I used to have it here. Maybe it was 91. They gave in this article all the information that they now know about the formation of suns. And when I read this, it was really exciting to me, because here's the process that they now know. An old sun that has been around for a long, long time, and as it passes into the dark light spiral, it can either expand and become a red giant, like we talked about, and die in that process, or it could blow up, expand beyond itself, just and form this huge hydrogen cloud that is so big you can't believe how big this thing is. It's enormous. It's immense, and it's way bigger than solar systems or anything like that. It's a huge, huge cloud. And what they've discovered is that the hydrogen, when it does that, is not totally homogeneous. There are certain areas that are not as much, and some areas where there is more, like where these bright spots are. There's like spots in there where there is more hydrogen than the others. And when that happens, first the cloud blows up and goes out, and then it kind of sits there for a while. And what happens then is, because of gravity, the hydrogen, where it's denser, begins to move toward those dense spots. And new stars begin to form. For every one that dies, approximately 200 or 300 new babies are born. A good example of that is the middle star of the belt of Orion. That's exactly what's happening there. There's 200 new babies being formed right now from just one adult giving its life. And as this the gas keeps contracting in and coming in and in and in and in, it finally, the gas gets to this place where the compression and the heat is such that fusion begins. And it begins a low-level fusion reaction of hydrogen, and it becomes called a protostar, but the gas is still coming in. This is taking place inside that big gas cloud you just saw. And it forms this little protostar in here. And then it has another sphere of round gas around that one, with a lighter sphere of round gas around that one. If you remember, we have a chakra point at the base point with another sphere around that, and then a bigger sphere out here, exact same image. And the whole thing forms a north and south pole and begins to rotate. It's actually rotating in both directions at once, but the overall image of it is rotating in one direction, which, as you can see, usually is counterclockwise, just as it is with the planets. And at one point, it reaches certain speed, and a disk pops out, like this. And the image of the flying saucer, where the Merkaba takes place. And at that point, the fusion reaction begins to really take off. And again, you see this rotational pattern, black hole that's in the middle of it, middle of the galaxy. And if you go down to a particular point in there, you have a solar system. And again, you have a sun in the middle with planets rotating around it. Same kind of thing, what you just saw. And then, if you go down to a single planet, again, things like Saturn and Neptune, you can actually see the disk and the sphere pattern around there. But it's much more than that, and if you study the works of Richard Hoagland, you'll see that planets have these same star tetrahedral fields inscribed in the sphere around them, which they're just beginning to understand through the world bodies and in science. And the same thing is going on. Or you can come down to a human being, and we have the same potential in there. Even if you go down to the molecular structure of the very fabric of the reality, you have the core of the atom in the center and the electrons rotating around that. The same kind of image going on from microcosm to macrocosm. So I say, is it any wonder that it was chosen that that shape would be used for what we call the UFOs and the flying saucers? It would be kind of a natural thing if you were trying to duplicate nature. Like this. These are the photographs from Billy Myers that came out of Switzerland, isn't it? Yeah. And they are real photographs, I believe. So again, I don't think that the people who are putting these out have us in their in their greatest concern. And though that may all change very soon. There is tremendous change going on, not only in the Ascended Masters, but in all peoples everywhere. There's a great, great change occurring right now in the darkest of the forces and the lightest of the forces. There is a tremendous something. The greatest change ever seen is occurring at this moment. Not just on Earth, but everywhere. And so what I'd like to approach now is who is it that is using these kinds of things and these ships. So I've slowly brought this up before. I want to look at there are basically two kinds of people in this sort of two kinds of two basic categories of people. And there are those that use these kinds of external Merkabas and ones that use internal living fields of Merkabas. It's like Archangel Michael. Doesn't have any spaceship. Neither does Raphael or a lot of these people. There's no spaceships at all. And yet they're incredibly powerful beings. And then we've got a lot of these alien beings that are around that are interfering and coming in different ways, who come in on these physical vehicles. I mean, they're physical in the sense that if they lower their frequency to this place, there's something you can get in and out of. They become non-physical when they change to a different wavelength and go up to higher and higher wavelengths, but they're not Merkaba fields that are linked with a particular person. They're externally created. Well, it all goes back to the Lucifer Rebellion. The Lucifer Rebellion is not the first time this has taken that someone has attempted to do this. There's been at least 3 times before. But approximately a little over 200,000 years ago, a person named Lucifer decided to do something that had been tried in ancient times before. And Lucifer, if you remember, according to the Bible, was the greatest angel that God had ever created. He was the most beautiful, the most intelligent, the number one model that he'd ever made. And he was on the left-hand side, I believe it was. Jesus was on one side. And Lucifer was on the left-hand side of God as the top model. And the flaw, if there is any such a thing, of Lucifer, is that, let's put it this way, it is a natural trait that God gave us to try to become greater than what we already are. And so usually we have these like heroes or people that have already gone beyond, the gurus or whatever you want, people who've gone beyond, that we try to emanate them or to become like them. But Lucifer didn't have anyone. The only one that he had that was greater than him was God. And so he tried to become like God and greater than God. And so his way of, he was so intelligent that he knew everything. He understood all mental patterns. He understood how all things were created. He knew that the Merkaba field was the creation pattern. And so he decided to become as great as or greater than God. And from another point of view, it very well could have been that God understood this, that this would take place, creating someone like this. And what he did was, he knew that love was the thing that created the living Merkaba field, and his choice was to sever his connection with God, his love connection with God, and to create an external field, what we call a UFO, to get inside of and to ascend to the heights of the heavens and to become as great as or greater than God, and creating a separate reality from the rest of the body of God. He convinced a great deal of people that they should do this because of what I'm about to show you. And we were all some of those people that he convinced in one way or another, because we're all here. And this entire level of consciousness is, he convinced me in the sense that I'm here to try to change it, but I'm still here. So I'm not any better than anyone else. We're all have, for one reason or another, no matter how high or where you came from, we're involved in this dance. And this is what happened. This is what he said. There was this missing information which had to do with that little sphere that was inside the sphere that would pass through here and the sphere that would happen in the middle. And there's only one way that could be calculated. And it was tied to another possibility of the way that that spirit could move out of the great void. And there were two trees in the Garden of Eden. One of them was the tree of life, and the other was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they were both in the center, which is kind of an interesting image. How we could have two trees exactly in the center. But these two trees were right in the center of this garden, and they were both very different. One led to, and they were both very different. One led to death, and the other led to immortality and eternal life. One, they had, and the key or hidden significance behind them was that one, there was two different ways it was possible geometrically to come out of the great void. There were actually many, many, many ways conceptually, but there was only two ways geometrically, and that you could proceed through. And one of these ways was the tree of life, which is the way we showed you, where the Spirit of God moved up to the top, and then it moved to the circle, and then it began a vortex rotating around the equator of the central one. But there's another way. And that way is, first of all, spirit is not a thing. And space-time is something that spirit creates. It's an illusion created by spirit. And so spirit is able to be in more than one place, what we call simultaneously. Spirit can divide itself and be anywhere in its creation that it wants to be. It could divide itself a whole lot of times. I mean, look how many times just in this room we've divided ourselves. And so definitely spirit can be in two places at once, which is the easiest of all situations. And so at the very, very beginning of creation, while we're still in the great void, the first sphere is made. Same patterns are made, goes through the same procedure, whatever procedure you want to go through. There are other ones than what the Egyptian thought in terms of actually creating the sphere. But once the first sphere is created, rather than moving, when the first motion is made, this is the key right here, rather than moving up here totally, spirit divides itself and leaves half of itself here and the other half up here. So only half of spirit moves up to the top, so that it's in two places at once simultaneously. And then on the next motion, the motions from then on in are dual, so that the motion of this one would move from here while the one in the center moves over to here. So it begins this dual or double helical pattern rather than a vortex motion. And when that continues out, the grid begins to look like this. And if you continue doing this, it begins to form the flower of life. It's the same flower, the same geometrical images are there. It creates the same laws. You end up with a reality looking exactly the same. The reality itself, the laws that are contained in that pattern and this pattern are the same, because that is the same pattern as this pattern. So you get the same laws, you get planets and trees and all the other various things and all the various levels and dimensions and everything else. Exactly the same. It duplicates it in every single way except for one big central important difference. This one has a single center in it. And this grid, no matter where you come back from it, has two centers. This has a single eye, and that has two centers or two eyes. The vortex will have a single center. The helical pattern that creates it will have two eyes. And no matter how big the grid gets, when you try to find it, you locate its center, you'll find that there is none. There's 2 points inside it in the middle. And that's the geometrical difference between this one and this one. And Jesus said something once before that has kind of gone over a lot of people's heads, but relative to this, if you hear it, he said, "If thine eye be single, thy body be filled with light." And this is what he meant. When you look at the geometry of a living, of a consciousness or a body or anything else, you'll find, or I think I mentioned this, that like around a human being there's a cube or a square, and it all is tied into this little egg of life, which is the second form that comes out of Genesis. And so there are many views of this. Didn't I go through all that before? Where this is one view and this is another diamond view. Yeah. there's the hexagonal view, which is like this, and there is the, in the diamond view, there's also the diamond view on in this way, and there's a diamond view on in this way, which are rectangles. Well, the diamond view on in this way, this one, it looks like that, is what you will find if you analyze this sequence that was created by moving in that way. I didn't do these very lightly, but there's a green sphere here, a green one there, and a green one there, and there's kind of a rose one here, a rose one here, and a rose one here, which happens to be a view of this from that angle. It's the only pattern you'll find in there. And when you put that into geometrical images, now these three spheres moving down here, this one, and this one, that is exactly what this would be translated to onto a two-dimensional piece of paper. And it happens to be, and this was the convincing thing that Lucifer got about 1/3 of the angels on, was that the only way that you can calculate the sphere that passes through here and the sizes and get the rest of the information is from this view. It needs this diagonally view of that to calculate all of the size of the sphere and all these things. And this is all the mathematics on it that came up with. And to calculate all those various things that are inside of there. And so he said, we need to do this. And I guess a lot of people believed him. However, every time that someone has tried to do this in the past, it has always resulted in utter, complete chaos with untold numbers of lives being destroyed and unbelievable amount of pain to the system. And that's not, and it's also true this time. It's caused incredible chaos, and not just here on Earth, but all over the place. But something appears to be happening differently this time, and it appears to be centered on this little speck of dust out in the middle of nowhere called Earth. Much of what I'm about to talk about in a little bit. There's a choice in life that many people have chosen. It's either to do external Merkaba, which isn't just that. Imagine if you got in one of these things and you flew to a new planet. Now that you have externalized your powers, then you externalize it in the form also, once you get there, in the terms of buildings and all this other stuff and everything, all the stuff, clothes, everything that we have, it gets externalized also. And so it becomes an externalized civilization, which is the direct result of the Lucifer rebellion. So, in truth, anybody who's flying around in these things, and anybody who has what we call high sophisticated civilizations, or even low sophisticated civilizations, is to one degree or another involved in the Lucifer rebellion. And the beings who are not don't have any external stuff at all going on. An example of that, the perfect example that we have right here on Earth, is the dolphin. That's a being that is way beyond where we are right now, but they don't have any externalized stuff at all, though they were involved in this. They have managed to totally extract themselves from it. They were only lightly involved in it. They were not real heavily involved in it like some groups. And because of it, they were able to get out of it. And so now, they've done it. And if they can do it, we can do it. And but there is far more life out there, way, 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 way more life out there than beings who are involved in UFOs or that externalized, the externalized Merkabas, who live with internalized Merkabas. And the vast majority of them don't even have bodies. They don't have any physicalness associated with them at all. It may seem unusual it's hard to imagine that kind of life. That's where I came from. I came from a place where there was no distinction between oneness, one thing, and another thing. It was an all-inclusive light field that extended everywhere throughout everything, and so there was nothing externalized whatsoever at all. So we have a choice between either a living field or to continue in this kind of way. And it's our choice. We have that right because we have God within us, and so we can do either one. But if we make the choice to move to a living field, all I can say is it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's hard because we are addicted. We are on a drug. It's a very heavy-duty drug. It's immersed right into the core of our being. It's like heroin or something. And it takes tremendous willpower.
Right.
It starts with a place where you decide that you're going to be free again. But without it, and as you can see, look at this room we're immersed in all our life. Could any of us be free of this? Could we live in a way without this?
Sure.
It's not easy. You know, we can hardly go from week to week without this money that we have to have, you know. They've got us addicted on every conceivable level you can think of. And then further addictions onto that. It's not just drugs. That's only part of it. It's the whole way of being. And this starts getting into other things like the secret governments and all the other things that are behind this, and stretching back into deep into space. There's a great deal of stuff going on here. But once you do get out, you start getting clearer, and your heart starts opening up, and you start feeling better. But it takes a long time for the vibrations of those various drugs to leave, because they're always pulling. It's always pulling, because some of them are very pleasurable and very beautiful. You know, we can do it. Once we get to the other side and we reach the living field, the beauty and the light is greater than anything of the darkness. Absolutely anything. There's nothing in the darkness that can come close. I mean, here's the darkness all around it. It is enclosing it. But the light is something of extraordinary beauty. And eventually it leads to something even beyond light and dark.
You may be addressing this very question right this minute. I'll ask it, and if it is, just please take over. I just have a bit of a problem believing that God is anything other than God, Goddess, all that is anything other than love, and that God could create anything that was less than beauty and perfection and light. And therefore, that if this decision to create a Lucifer was if that decision was made, then, and that polarization started at that point, that there was a higher purpose still to that, which is to bring us, you know, so it's not so terrible.
Obviously, God knew what He was doing when He created Lucifer, and so so Lucifer obviously is working with God. You know, though from our Christian point of view down here, we don't want to see that. We want to separate it into the devil and to God, and which we've done, and we've made the devil almost as strong as God, and there's this war going on. But it's not a war. It's a very intricate plan from God. And there is no, like I said before, the white lever, I think I did in here. Did I talk about the white brotherhood and the dark brotherhood?
No.
And I thought I did. I'm losing it in my old age. Well, I think I did. I didn't talk about the Great White Brotherhood and the Dark Brotherhood.
No.
Well, it's not a story. It's just a real quick thing. It's a belief which addresses what she's saying. there is two primary forces. There's really more than that. There's neutral and etc. But there's the two primary forces of the light and the darkness. And we tend to think that the light are the good guys and the dark are the bad guys and this kind of thing. From a Melchizedek point of view, this just isn't true. This is a result of our polarization consciousness that from where we are, the interpretation as we look out of our eyeballs resulting from the way that we breathe. But in truth, beyond this, in a unity place, though I have chosen to work with the light, I see the dark side also as my brothers. And you see, if you take like a planet like planet Earth, or it could be a person or anything else, the dark side comes in and does everything that it can to stop that planet from evolving. That's its job. And then the light force comes in and does everything that it can to evolve it. And so it appears like a battle. But really, they're working together, and they function very closely together. And the purpose behind it all is so that timing results at the right moment. So that the moment when the planet either goes up or down, which either side wins or loses, happens at a very precise moment. And it's very much like giving birth to a baby. You want the baby to be born at 9 months. You don't want the baby to be born at 2 months or 4 months or 12 years or something like that. You want it at 9 months. And so the timing is very important. And if you look at life carefully, everything in life is timing. It's things happening at the right moment. And that things happening at the right moment is a result of the dark brotherhood and the light brotherhood working together as one. And so what good and evil are just, they're necessary, they're important. Both sides are important. They have to be there for at least in the level of life that we are in now.
I had a really important question. You were talking, you began explaining to us a double helical form of the tree of life. Are we existing on the double helical structure of the tree of life, or the one you've been teaching us the whole class, or are they interconnected?
No, we are physically
together?
on the double helical one. The one I taught is the one that I won't say should have, just the one that we could have taken, but we didn't. We took the one with 2 eyes and a double helical pattern.
My question is, why does the symbol of I'm taking it the vortex pattern, that's the only way I can describe it, the flower of life, why? They both apply, though? You can use both, and they do the same, they have the same laws, everything, geometry, everything's exactly the same?
They create the exact same reality. It's an identical reality. It's like a parallel reality. The only difference is the person who takes this one, the double heel one, interprets it differently than the one who has a single eye.
How did we come up with the vortex one? How come we never see any symbols with a double helical pattern on the planet and only spherical? Is that trying to remind us to make a choice to move towards that?
I didn't understand that.
Okay, the only symbols that I've seen that you've shown us around the world of the tree of life are based on the vortex pattern. They're not based on the double helical one that you just showed us.
Well, that's true.
Is that a process of trying to remind us? Is that what that's all about? Do there exist double helical patterns of the flower of life? And what is the significance? I understand the significance that you just made, but what's the existence of, or the significance of their non-existent, that pattern, and nobody learning or basing the technology
the
on
other
that?
pattern does exist out there. It is on walls.
Okay.
It isn't that it doesn't exist out there.
Okay.
But it is that all the world's major religions have all come to the agreeing that ultimately everyone feels that this is probably the best way, I guess. This is like the sacred symbol, but it is not what has been, not what we have done. However, realize we only really fell into the Lucifer rebellion. Yeah, there's good, evil, and neutral, and there's proton, electron, neutron. There is threeness. I agree. That's what I talked about before. But I was just breaking it in. There are neutral beings, and they're very important. But all they do is just sit and watch. The Cyclops, the beginning ones, had one eye a long time ago. But that's in physical form. When you get into the higher forms of light, the higher forms have a single eye, but the eye is a sphere, and it's all they are. And it sees 360 degrees. And so it's just a sphere of light, like the Arcturians, for example, which is the highest form that we have in this galaxy. They're little spheres of light. They're alive, that's their body, and they're a single eye, and they look out in all directions at once. It's very high level, but there's higher levels than that. Yes.
I went to a workshop or something recently, and somebody said something that really irritated me, so I had to think about it for a long time. And what they said was, their understanding was in relationships in life, that if somebody were to be around you and cause you a lot of pain or difficulty, that they were actually somebody who really holds a great deal of love for you and agreed to come back and inflict you with this kind of pain to help you. No, I'm serious. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, get the hell out of here. But the more I began to think about it, was why it irritated me was because it took away my anger and hatred for the person. It made me actually look at what the problem was. And I kind of really preferred to just be really pissed off at the person. But it was that good and evil thing again. And once I took that away and I stopped looking at that person as being mean to me and actually doing me a favor, whether it's true or not, it really became irrelevant. It still took that away, and I had no choice at that point but to focus on what the problem was and then get rid of it and actually thank them. Although I didn't do that, that took a lot, but I didn't get that far.
Well, we grow in the negative situations faster than we do in the positive ones. When everything is just running along smooth and great, and nothing's going on, and everything's comfortable, we're on a plateau. Nothing much happens. It's only when something heavy-duty comes along and blows us out of the water that we tend to make the changes and the steps that do it. So the negativity causes rapid growth. If we didn't have any negativity, we wouldn't be here. We'd still, I don't know where we would be, but we wouldn't be here. That's for sure.
John, is it possible to change from the double helix to the single eye?
That's what we're attempting to do right now.
That will do it.
By attempting to reestablish the other way of breathing and to reconnect the living field, if we're capable of doing this, then we can sidestep we step from one reality to the other one. And our eye becomes single and our body becomes filled with light. We literally become light. And it's a possibility that's always there. We reverse the other way around. It's a possibility for someone who's in light to switch back over to the other side too, to the other possibility.
Would this happen for all beings on the earth when it does happen, or does it happen?
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a couple questions. One is that, and I truly feel this from my heart, and it's been bothering me for many years, that I feel I have a very strong Lucifer connection, but not because I'm from the dark side, so to speak. But Lucifer was on one side of God and Jesus on the other, and Lucifer was the brightest of angels. And my true feeling is that instead of he deciding to become a god or better than God, I think he gave the ultimate sacrifice to create a new situation, whereas that even love can move. In order for love to move, it has to go somewhere from somewhere. And if love is the same, it really doesn't move, it just exists. So love in itself has a polarity. And Lucifer and Jesus, they went their separate ways. And then we had what we're going through now, and eventually, in fact, very soon, there'll be a reunion of the love. And I think at this point, the love would even be more powerful than it keeps coming in stronger and stronger, is that the solution to unity is very, very simple. And it's as simple as just accepting with gratitude and love Lucifer and everything they've done. And that will like be a catalyst for the reuniting of the spirit.
Well, a lot of times things are very simple to say like that, but to actually get all people. It's like a good example is the Israelites and the Arabs. I mean, it's real easy to say, well, all you guys got to do is just love one another. But they've got so many roots of hatred and pain and stuff inside of there that the solution is very, very difficult. And so, it's still going on. One goes over and bombs the other one, and the other one bombs the other one, and it's just this ping pong match going back and forth. So eventually, if someone's going to find a solution over there, it's going to have to be pure genius. Something of pure genius is going to have to take place, and I believe that it will take place.
The one thought that also came in very strong is to actually, and this is contrary to how we all probably feel, is ask Lucifer to assist in the unification. Instead of fighting him, ask for assistance.
He is. The assistance actually between Lucifer and Jesus, though they have a polarity and they have their places in the dark side and the light side, I'd rather, instead of giving names to particular people, just say the dark brotherhood and the light brotherhood, because they really are, there's many more people involved in either side than those. But the two forces of dark and light are who have not really been resisting each other, but resisting the third component in the middle, or working or controlling the component that the forces are working on, like whatever the life form is. And the very principle of this way of moving between dark and light has failed in the past every time. It's always failed. It's always ended up in war. It's always ended up in both sides, instead of cooperating or working together in love and trying to find the way for all life, it's always resulted in both sides ending up all in all battle on every level. And, resulting in like Mars being totally wiped out, along with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of other places that were just totally destroyed. All out full tilt war, which has happened time and time again. And we're right on the verge of that right now throughout the universe. There's more of that. We're just a reflection. The Earth is simply a reflection of what's out there, and there's that similar kind of thing stretching out where life wants to do that. And yet there is, what's now occurring is, for the first time ever, it appears as though God, meaning us from outside the system before it was created, has decided to intervene directly. He never did before, ever. There was no intervention before, and we always ended up with... But now there appears to be something totally different happening here. It's never happened before, and that's what I'm going to have to explain it and get into it, because we haven't talked about it yet. But it's almost as though neither side, neither the Dark Brotherhood or the Light Brotherhood, were able to find an answer on their own. And what the interesting part is that God had the answer, if this is the answer that's occurring right now, had the answer buried as a little tiny seed in between the two, along from the very beginning. From the very, very beginning. And nobody ever saw it. Nobody knew it was there. Until it came down to, we needed to find an answer for a certain problem. And there was only one answer in the entire universe. The little seed was hidden. And when that little seed was used, no one dreamed that that the seed would grow to something of the proportions that it's growing to. It was only meant to work on a planet. And instead, the seed kept growing and is now affecting all life everywhere. without exception. And this is occurring right now, and it's only been 21 years in Earth time since the seed was planted.
A lot of the teachers were saying about 2 years or so ago that each individual had already decided their polarity, light or dark, and that the way had been divided, so to speak. It always sounded rather hopeless to me that somebody couldn't change their mind and say, no, wow, I see it now. But what you're saying is that we now have a chance that the whole thing can move forward, or is there still that faction that have said, no, I will stay with the dark?
There is now, well, everybody has to choose either the dark or the light or both. and which these guys, that's what these guys have done. These guys have chosen both, this particular group. These are the Pleiadians that come from a very the sannyasins. And they sometimes play the Dark Brotherhood and sometimes play the Light Brotherhood, depending on what they feel will bring the best balance for the whole thing. If the light gets too strong, they'll play the dark. If the dark gets too strong, they'll play the light. And right now, they're playing the dark. Because the light is now getting stronger. The light's considerably getting stronger than the darkness on Earth.
So these are Pleiadian rather than the Greys?
They're Pleiadian, yes.
Well, are some of the Pleiadians actually mixed with the Greys?
They're supporting the Greys.
But I thought the Greys had been taken off planet now.
Well, this was all done a long time ago.
Yeah,
These photographs were taken a long time ago. Actually, I don't know I don't know if she's allowed the Pleiadians. When we say Pleiadians, this is a big place. There's lots of Pleiadians. I'm not talking about the Pleiadians that most people are familiar with. This is another group. Though they're very beautiful people. Almost all the Pleiadians are very beautiful. They just this group is a long time ago seeing the situation. In fact, they saw it from the very beginning. The moment Lucifer made the division, and most people went like this, they just sort of went like that in the middle. And whereas the vast majority didn't even do this, it moved back. The vast majority did not react one way or the other, because they knew that once you react, then you're in it, and that's it. So the vast majority is silent, and it just witnesses and watches, and does not do. I don't care what happens. They won't react. They won't help, nor not help. They won't assist or unassist. They'll just witness, and that's the position that the huge majority of life has taken. And this drama is sort of this little thing is happening inside. It's kind of like a body that is with, you might say, a small area of disease in it. And so you've got a part that's polarized inside of here, where the rest of the body is just watching. It's definitely watching. It's very concerned about it, but it won't interact directly. Arcturus has decided to come into this on the side of the light, and they have done a lot, very, very subtle work, and trying to balance things, especially when they've been around for a long time, though they're just kind of being known in the last 15, 20 years or so. I'm only going by the ones that one time they sat down and talked to me about various ones.
How about Andromeda?
I believe that, if I remember right, that they're also on the side of the light. I'm pretty sure they are. Though I only know a few of them. I don't remember. There seems to be they're not a real advanced race compared to like the Arcturians, who are, like light years apart. So their influence or power cannot be with the kind of power and wisdom and strength that the Arcturians could be. we discovered on Mars, first of all, this photograph. I think this was the Mariner 9, I think it was. It's Mariner frame 1205-78E, whatever that means. And they discovered these tetrahedral pyramids on Mars. They're enormous and huge. You can see them down here. That's the actual NASA frame up here. And you can see these pyramids, or tetrahedrons, to be more precise. These enormous, who knows how many miles high tetrahedrons. Well, of course, that could have just been a phenomenon of Mars, which is would have been interesting. But there they were, these very accurate tetrahedral structures that were sitting on Mars. And then later, it was Richard Hoagland who found this there was this photograph up here, this one shot of a region called Cydonia, which has that name. They were all given names to all the areas on Mars. And they noticed this little thing right here. This looks like surface on Mars. You wouldn't have thought of thing, except that that little thing right there looks a whole lot like a human face. NASA said, yeah, and kept on going. But Richard Hoagland took this one face and started looking at it and thinking about it, and wrote a book about it, I think called The Face on Mars, I believe. But he didn't have a lot of proof. He only had one photograph when he wrote that, if I remember this correctly. And there was very little anything that was going on. That book was written in innocence, pretty much. And then I spent about 2 hours and 15 minutes on the telephone with Richard Hoagland right after he'd written that book, not too long after. And he was very, very excited because they had finally found one more slide. They had went through I think 30,000 frames of the NASA things, a person, and had found another slide, which is what they needed. They needed a sun angle at 2 different angles to really be able to see what was going on, or do any kind of digital enhancement with a computer or anything else like that. They couldn't do it from one point. And so they found this one, which had a different sun angle. And when they did that and they digitally enhanced the face, they found eyeballs and teeth in the face, which made them suspect strongly that it wasn't just the wind that made it do this. And so he was very excited because I just happened to talk to him whenever the time was right when that had happened. I started telling him, we talked, and I started telling him, well, what he was going to find about the planets. He wanted to know about what I was teaching in this meditation. I was describing it to him. I told him that he was going to find that the star tetrahedral field was around people, but it was also around planets and suns and galaxies and everything else like this. And eventually, this would be the area. He had never even heard of tetrahedral geometry up until that point. And as it turns out, they started. It was this thing which you can barely see because this is blown up so much here. This is one of the clumps that was near the face. It's now been called the D&M Pyramid. Originally, it was called the Empire State Building. But then there was these 2 men who starts with the name D and M, and I don't remember their names. Does anybody remember their names? I don't know. It wasn't Doug and Marty. I don't know. It was somebody else's names. And though you can't see there, it is a 5-sided pyramid. It's a pentagon of 5 sides, like this. And the angle is not a perfect one. There's different angles in here, each one of them. And the angles are very, very precise, and they a whole spectrum of the super accurate sacred geometry and mathematics comes out of these 5 angles. which just couldn't be. And we're talking about pi and e and everything else. All these things are falling out of there. This, by the way, is a very high building, or mountain, whatever you want to call it. It's 10 miles high. 50,000 feet plus. They're enormous. The face is like a mile and a half long. They're very, very big. So this is where that D and M pyramid sits. This is where the face sits. And there's other structures on there that they've been started looking. There's a circle with a tetrahedron sitting over here. There's a long line thing here, which is very unusual and strange and all kinds of, from a geological point of view. And what they call the city now over here, which is a whole series of pyramids and things. And when they started looking at all this, there's 3-sided, 4-sided, and 5-sided pyramids all in there. There's a wall that exists up there that extends for many miles. There's all kinds of unusual structures there. And when they started looking at the precise angles between all of these things, they found that the exact angles that were all in here which were duplicated, they weren't angles that just fell once, but they fell many, many times throughout all of the structure. And all of these angles were repeated constantly inside the D&M pyramid. So it was like redundant. It was like a message. When you get a message in space or to someone else, you can't. If you just get it one time, it's like at random. But when a message is repeated over and over and over and over again, you realize that it's an intelligent message. And this message was repeated over and over and over and again in these angles. And the message, when they calculated it out and printed it out to see what it was saying mathematically, it had to do with this angle of 19.5 degrees, the angle between the tip of the pyramid, this one, and this ridge that was on here, which is repeated throughout here many, many times and many, many times in the DNA, which is 19.5. Mathematically, this has a very specific geometrical form that it's talking about, which happens to be a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere, which is the key to harmonics that we've seen before, and all these other of light and sound and dimensional levels and so many other things, that whoever was doing this, they were talking about this. And later he found out that they begin to realize that this, and I'm not allowed to show his movie anymore to you. He doesn't want me to show it, and he's trying to. He's afraid to be connected with me directly because I'm a psychic, and he's trying to do things scientifically, and he doesn't want to be directly connected. So I respect that. I'm not going to do that. Maybe in a few years we'll be able to come back together when life on the planet.
I saw the movie actually advertised on TV.
Yeah. Well, I really recommend that you see it, and I'll give you the address where you can get it and all those kinds of things. I found all the addresses, by the way, so you can get to them. And whoever had copied them had put an old set, entirely separate set, and had copied an old set. But I got the new set, which was also in there. I don't understand what happened, but anyway, we got them.
What's the name of it?
I will copy them.
Okay, it's called Richard Hoagland's The Face on Mars, I think that's what it's called. It was a presentation at the United Nations. He also gave the presentation at NASA, but the one at the United Nations is a lot better. Though he has dropped out some real important information that he gave at NASA that he did not give at the United Nations. If you saw both of them, you'd have much more complete information. But anyway, they've discovered now, first, that there was a star tetrahedral field inscribed in the planet Mars. And that this angle, if this was a planet, this angle of this plane right here, and this one, the bottom, this the flat top of this one, and the bottom of this one here, pass through the planet, or of a sphere, at 19.5 degrees north and south latitude. It's actually 19.47 is a little more accurate, but to be precisely on. And that they found now that things like Jupiter, the rotational, there's a dark spot on Jupiter, happens to be rotating at exactly the 19.5 and precisely on one of these points as it rotates. And they're finding more and more and more information. I'm not going to go into all the depth of all the stuff that he's into, but when you look at it, you will see how powerfully it reinforces what we're talking here, what they're discovering. Even the fact that they now believe that the energy levels that are coming off planets, which are greater than the amount of energy that's coming from the sun, is really a third and fourth dimensional energy exchange. And the hyperdimensional space that is talked about in mathematics that would indicate that from such a shape there would be a hexagonal pattern around the North Pole, and could also explain there at the South Pole. When they looked to the North Pole of Saturn, they found that the clouds were moving in a hexagon. You could actually see it. You could see it, the cloud pattern moving at 300 or 400 miles an hour, I think. These clouds making these turns, just like this. Doing this at huge speeds, going around there like that, forming this pattern right around the North Pole. And when they went to Neptune, they found that the ice had been frozen in a hexagon around the North Pole. Clearly being able to see in this huge hexagonal mountain range, where you could see, because this is a hexagon from the top. You know, from the side you're seeing it like that. But if you look at it like that, right on like that, that forms, if you connected the outer edges of this thing, it's a hexagonal pattern. And since then they found that the points like Hawaii sits on the 19.5 latitude, and the equator, the huge volcano that's going off all the time, is sitting on one of these points. And the same way with on Mars, the biggest volcano there is sitting in the same place, 19.5. The sun itself, where the sunspots that come out of the sun, are 19.5 south in latitudes. Yeah.
Light's not on 19.5 latitude, it's degrees on the tetrahedron for the show.
Degrees?
Or 20, or 22, 21, I can't remember. The latitude.
It's degrees?
It's 19.5 degrees to show from the film that Hawaii, the volcano, sit on 19.5 degrees of the tetrahedron.
Oh, okay.
Latitude,
Oh, it's not latitude. I was saying it's latitude.
It's 20,
What is the latitude?
21.
21. So it's degrees.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
degrees on the tetrahedron, and that's
Okay.
the highest mountain in the world in Hawaii is concave.
Okay.
You go from
All right. Thank you for saying that. Anyway, however, Richard is only aware right now of the shape of the energy field that's inside the planets and the sun, being this shape, and that it rotates counterclockwise. He's not aware yet that there is two counter-rotating fields, and it's the difference in speed between them that caused the planet to slowly rotate in that counterclockwise field. And there's actually three fields sitting there. This is something that he has not arrived at yet. But that's all described here mathematically. Well, what happened here, now we can go back to what happened in Atlantis. Before I ever even talked to Richard Hoagland, and I've got on videos going back 2.5 years even before all of that, back 7.5 years ago, where we talked about how the Martians had come from Mars approximately 1 million years before. Remember I said that their planet was being destroyed, according to Thoth, and that they had to, they decided to get out of there, and they created this space-time vehicle. At the time I didn't tell you what it was. And that they were able to look ahead in time. Remember how I said that? It all sounded kind of weird when you're first hearing that. And then they came back into our future. But what they created, all these buildings and everything, they were creating an external Merkaba, a UFO, a space-time vehicle. The UFO is not just being something that can go from one place to another. It can also move forward in time, because time doesn't exist, only space. And you can move through the space continuum, which is in a golden mean spiral. And so you can move through it and come back through the space continuum and connect in at any point. And so they created that, and this is just the remnants of the experimentation and all that was going on in all of this. Now, Richard thinks that guessing that this is about 500,000 years old. He first started out at 200,000. He keeps getting older and older and older. He's now at about 500,000 years old. Eventually, he's going to find this to be closer to a little over 900,000. If Thoth is correct, because Thoth said it was just a little less than a million years when this took place. And they left there, and they went to Earth and injected themselves into us, and which has been the problem from the very, very beginning. By the way, they've also found a complex on Venus. I just want to put it out there. They found a complex on Venus that is identical to the one in Egypt, with the Sphinx, the three pyramids and the Sphinx and all that. And I know that because I had a woman who was on the mental health committee in Washington, D.C., who was the primary one that determined the rules and regulations of the mental health institutions throughout the United States. And I brought her to Peru, that Peruvian trip I talked about. She happened to be one of the women. She was 45, 50 years old, and something like that. And we happened to be walking. You walk for several days through the mountains, so we had a lot of time to talk. And I was talking to her, and at one point she said that she had just quit the committee. This was in July, I think it was, June or July of 1985. She had just quit the committee, and in that she's saying that there was this real interesting thing that happened right before they had left. You see, there is a rule in the United Nations, with NASA in the United States, that if NASA finds anything out there that indicates that there is life, or anything incredible in any way, level at all, they have to go to this specific committee and the committee and show them the evidence. It's by law, they have to. And then the committee has to decide if we're going to all go crazy if we see this, whether or not it's something that would be too unstable for us to see. And so she said that she sat there and watched over 200 very clear photographs of an installation on Venus that looked just like the one on Earth. She said it was identical. The whole Sphinx, the head, the whole thing, everything. And they got lots and lots and lots of photographs of it, because they mapped every square inch of Venus. Every square inch of it except the North and the South Pole. 90% of the planet, very, very carefully. And she said that that was in January of 1985 when they received the photographs. And she said they studied them from January, February, and March, and April, I think, for about 4 months. And thought of all possibilities of what would happen, because this would indicate absolutely beyond any doubt that life had been out there before, or that there's more than just us, or we had somehow gotten space before, or something, or someone else. It would indicate there's got to be something else going on than what we normally thought. And the committee said, yes, release it. And so she didn't have to be censored in telling me this, because the committee said that it was okay to talk about it and to release it to the world. But what NASA did was they put it on one television station, one time, late at night, in a Florida TV station, and then pulled it off and said, okay, that conforms to the law. That was it.
Is it open to the public, though, to go in and get it?
Can we get a copy?
I don't know. ABC has tried to do it, and it has met with incredible resistance. Okay, you'll understand. I'm going to explain to you what NASA's problem is here real soon. No, I don't. I figured that out.
Figured out what?
Which station needs
Does Richard Holden know?
He's been informed. I don't know if he wants to deal with it. Yeah, actually he knows, because I talked to another person from ABC where all that was discussed and everything. They know. And they know they just cannot get the hardcore evidence because they just won't release it.
Did Venus destroy themselves like Mars?
I don't know that. I don't know if that was the case or if it just was never developed or if it naturally... they know that there was oceans, the new evidence that's coming out that just was released in the last month. They know that, or they believe strongly that Venus was covered with water in oceans, and that had lots of water on it. And anytime a planet has lots of water on it, it generally develops life. And but exactly what happened, I don't know. Thoth never talked anything about it. Thoth says that the life of Venus is on the fourth dimensional and higher levels, and that it's very healthy and very alive and real together. It's a really, really, really healthy planet. It's the healthiest one of all. Yeah.
Do you suspect the pyramids on these planets are like same as Egypt in that initiation chamber?
I don't know. Remember the Egyptians keep talking about how they keep leaving here and going to Venus, and so maybe that was like a beacon or a marker or something of that kind of level. I don't really know. I don't know. He just said that the Egyptians had a great deal of connection between there and Venus for a long time, and but exactly what the purpose was or why to duplicate that on there. Just as this one here is on here, Richard Hoagland now thinks that this has been duplicated in England. This very complex. Who has that here? Somebody showed me. You have it? He has it on his video, but they're developing it more and more now. They believe that the entire system of the rings, the thing, the mountains, the Indian pyramid, the face, etc., and all these things have been someone purposely went into England and clearly marked out every little detail onto the English landscape. That was on Mars. And it's all centered around the primary one is the Stonehenge, which is that's another one that's coming up here real soon. I can't remember why I had that on there. Well, I don't have any idea why I put that back on there again. But Stonehenge has certain lines going through it. I don't know if I have this on here, where you mark them out and everything like this. And one of the primary lines of Stonehenge connects directly with the apex of the Great Pyramid. And so there's this connection. And the crop circles, which we're about to talk to, are primarily in an equilateral triangle with Stonehenge centered in the middle. So even that is talking about a triangular-based thing just from the location of them. However, these lines that go off of Stonehenge, which could be stretched all around the whole planet, these crop circles have been found all over the world, not just in England. But they've always been found on one of these lines that comes off of Stonehenge. There's always been a connection back to it. And they've not only been found in crops, but also in sand and snow. And in other countries. They've been found in the United States. They've been found in Canada. They've been found all over. In fact, those guys, Doug and what's his name, who said that they were the ones, Doug and who? Doug and Dave, who said that they were the ones who did it. While they were on TV, at the very moment they were on TV, saying that we're the guys that did it, a crop circle was being formed and people were witnessing it with no visible thing in Canada. So those guys are really good. They told me they would let me know when if I ever made it to England. And hopefully I'll get there real soon, God willing, and we'll find out what it is. It's pretty much clearly a very highly evolved lava fields. And okay, you got to have the stick there, Ken. What? What happened? Oh.
This particular crop circle is talked about in quite length on a tape that was made by Norma Milanovic that channeled information from the Arcturians. And the little circle that's down in the bottom right-hand corner was all those little, like a half circle and then a little jog, another half circle and a little jog. Those are something about, was it the spiral steps that go into the Queen's Chamber? That are in the exact relationship. There's something encoded in this that relates directly to the geometry of the Great Pyramid.
Well, I could see that could be true. You could see this making a quarter turn and a 90-degree turn. And again, we saw just in the chakra centers how you have this 90-degree turn every quarter of these things. I think that if you were to analyze all the information there, you could probably fit into a book about that big, because geometry, as you can see, is a language, and a great deal can be said geometrically in the least amount of lines. And I mean, you can just put this on there, and it says a lot. But when you're putting something as incredible as this, and all these various levels, and all these rotational speeds, and all these other things that are on there, and so many things, even the distances between each one of these things and all this stuff. This is not done by just some bunch of college kids or something. I mean, there's somebody behind here which has a great deal of understanding. And when you start seeing that the information that's in the crop circles is also on Mars, and it's not only on Mars, but it's also into the sacred sites that are all around the world. The same information is embedded in there. And the angles and the shapes and the stones and the things that are going on all over the whole planet. Not just in the Great Pyramid or Stonehenge, but all over the world. They're all interlinked. There's 83,000 sacred sites. And they're all, one thing points to the next. Richard Hoagland was trying to bring up someone else's work, who I can't remember his name in the film. And this again, we've also been saying how in the very beginning they made that hole in the desert near the Great Pyramids, and then they were laid out in that spiral from there. And then from there, all other the sacred sites were laid out to all over the whole planet, each one interconnected to the next back to that single little hole. And that this was what it was all about, both in Mars and what's going on. This is present day. This is right now. This is something going on right now, and not a million years in the past, or in the last 13,000 years. This is something present. But all these things are all interconnected all over the world, and the purpose was to create the Christ consciousness grid. This is the purpose behind all of it, though not what was on Mars. That was not the purpose. Now, who's doing this and why, I really don't want to say now. I have certain thoughts about it and feelings about it, but I don't even want to say until I go over there and have the experience myself and see what's going on, and let them say to me. They have seen the experiences of people that have seen various ships. They tend to be extraterrestrial in the experiences of people who have watched the things go on in the spheres of light and the kind of ships that they talk about that are doing this. Whether or not this is true or what's going on, I don't know yet. I don't know. Yes.
I'm a member of the Crop Circle Research Society in England, and at the end of last year we had the chairman came and gave us a lecture, and at the very end of the crop circle season, which is just before the harvest, an individual who was so fed up with seeing symbols came out of the pub one night and said, why won't they write something? Why don't they just write something in the crops? And the very next day, they found what looked like Hebrew writing.
What did it say?
And nobody can read it, right?
That's right.
Then you have to go get another beer. Say, why don't they drop a book that tells you? Well, I'm not teasing on that, but I mean, obviously, they're aware of what we are. They're trying to communicate with us. This is from a high level intelligence. This is real clear. You know?
I'd like to get the photograph of it to Stan Tenen.
Oh, that would be a really good idea. Send it to me, and give it to me, and I'll send it to him. He would love to have that. There is a thing I'd like to show you right now. The last crop circle that came out, the very, very, very last one, which usually indicates what's going to happen the next year. So the crop circles, they haven't started yet, right? They haven't started yet. But the very last one that came out was the Mandelbrot fractal geometry. Do you all know what that is? Okay. Mandelbrot was the guy who made it, who happens to be English, and the Mandelbrot crop circle was right near where Mandelbrot was born, where they placed it. And I don't know how to spell Mandelbrot, but it's a thing that looks kind of like this. It kind of looks like this, and then off of it are these little things that look like hearts all around. This is not it at all, but there's these things that coming off of it like this. You'll see that this isn't even close. But it has kind of that feel to it. I think I want to erase it as quick as I can. Don't get it embedded too deeply in there. And that's talking about something a little different. It's talking about the infinity of life and the infinity of the geometry. It is a geometrical expression of what infinity is, what it means to be infinite. And I know of no better way to say that than with geometry. And so there was a man who created a fractal geometry movie, though it's never got out anywhere, based on the Mandelbrot mathematics. And I'd like you to just see this. And there's no words that can tell you what infinity really is until you see this. We kind of left off about 6,000 years ago in Egypt, or 4,000 years ago, whatever it was. A lot has happened since then. And but in present-day time, there was a certain series of events that led up that had a lot of implications on the Earth, and we need to see what those were. It began with a man named David Suzuki out of Canada, who's he's a geneticist actually. He's a very brilliant person. He won the Nobel Prize in genetics. He won this prize, though, not by looking through a microscope, but by looking through a telescope, as above, so below. And he was very interested in watching the movement of asteroids as they moved through the solar system. Unknown to most people on Earth, though not to the scientific community, we live inside of a bubble of matter. There's the solar system, the sun, the planets, everything like that, and then outside of that is a sphere made up of asteroids. And it's like there's all these little, it's like we live inside of an eggshell, kind of. And they rotate, they're always kind of moving around and rotating, and they move with the solar system as we move. And every once in a while, one of these little asteroids will break off and move through the solar system. We get lots of them. There's 50, 60, 70 a year, something like that, where they'll move from one place to another. And it was the movement of these asteroids that he applied to genetics. And it's just like looking at a big cell on a, where you really get it down into detail. And he had a team of people that watched the sky all the time. And he also had another smaller team of people who watched the sky during the day, watching the sun. And one day in the year 1950, this team witnessed something coming off the sun that wasn't in any of the textbooks. It didn't fit. They didn't know what the heck it was. It didn't make any sense at all. But they witnessed this spiral of energy coming off the sun that went right past the Earth. And no one knew what it was. No one knew what it meant or anything. All they knew is they just recorded it. That was in 1950. At that same moment, the Earth happened to be at the furthest distance point in a particular elliptical pattern of a wobble. There's many, we talked about another wobble, the precession. There's other wobbles, I mentioned them. There's this one particular wobble that is 14 years around that David had identified and that he was working with, and so it was like this. There was this it took 14 years to go around this one thing, and there's these points here, and the Earth happened to be sitting right there when the sun did this thing, whatever it was. And they just recorded it. They didn't know what it meant, except that they noticed that 3 years later, this was in 1950, approximately 3 years later, in 1950, boy, it's hard to write it this thing, it rocks. In 1953, the sun did this thing again. In 1956, it did it again, and each time it kept doing it. This one was stronger than that one, and this one was a lot stronger than that one. And then in 1957, we were on the other end of this thing, of the wobble, and it had been calculated that we were not where we were supposed to be. In other words, the wobble had started to enlarge, like that. They weren't certain. In 1959, the sun did another pulse of energy stronger than the one in 1956. It was every 3 years the sun started doing this. And so again in 1962, the sun pulsed again in this way. In the meantime, this kept going out further and further. In 1964, we'd come around one time on here. It was at that point that the David Suzuki team was convinced of something. However, they kept it secret unto themselves until the year 1968. They calculated further for a long time, for another 4 years. They wanted to be certain that it was true. In 1968, David Suzuki published a scientific paper that was really only released to Canada, the United States, and certain other governments. That it was the belief of this scientific team that there would be an explosion of the sun of unparalleled levels, the likes of which we had never seen before, in either August, September, October, or November of 1972, which would be in 4 more years, and that that by the end of the century, and they had a very specific time, we would have a new North and South Pole. They were convinced of it, and they had very powerful proof to come up with this, that the axis of the Earth and such was beginning to wobble outside of its normal wobbles. And the world governments became aware at this time. David Suzuki, actually even sooner than then, was given unlimited funds. Any amount of money whatsoever, didn't make any difference, whatever he needed. They gave him the University of British Columbia, you could have it. Anything he wanted, didn't matter. They gave him a 9-story building filled with all the scientists that he wanted and any equipment he wanted. Trudeau would have given him anything, it didn't matter. The Canadian government began to build these spheres that would house 12 males and 12 females. They were high up in the Rocky Mountains, and they could survive under any imaginable conditions that you could think of. Even if the oceans went over the Rocky Mountains, which was a very definite possibility, they were designed to break through the crust and float. They would go through any conceivable scenario, hopefully and they built several of these as survival things, because to them this was real. The United States also began to build underground terminals and things all around the world, from Pine Gap, Australia, to all the way up into you could go all the way from Colorado Springs, Colorado, all the way deep into White Sands, New Mexico, and all the way over way the heck into the middle of Arizona underground right now. Never come back, never surface. All this stuff was in the name, of course, of war and atomic bombs. They give it other names. But underneath all this, they knew that we were heading for big-time trouble very, very soon. And they were preparing. And we have two kinds of governments in the world. We got the outer governments of the people that we know, like Clinton and Bush and these kind of guys, Gorbachev, who are out there on the TVs and appear to be running everything, but which are not. And underneath this, there is a group of people who are, in essence, really the richest people in the world, who have been together a long time ago, and it really goes all the way back to Atlantis, that have a great deal of Martian blood in them, that can really control the world and all that goes on in the world. They control the wars, and when the wars start, and when the wars end. They control the famines and famines, and when they start and when they end, and they control. You'd be amazed at what they can actually do and what they can't do, and what they have done and what they in the past. And at this point in the game, at least up until a few years ago, they really weren't too concerned about us. We were just being used on a lot of levels. When the secret government found out about this in 1968, and probably had a pretty good indication even as far back as 1964, they decided to make some changes. Number one, it was determined from the report and everything else that more than likely there wouldn't be a building left standing on the planet from this thing, that whole continents would go up and down, that there would be massive changes under all of this. And so the secret government decided that they were going to, that they couldn't stay on Earth, that they were going to get off the Earth and leave, because the Earth was going to be devastated so much. And so they joined the United States and Russia together as one country a long time ago. They blended a lot of our money and information and all kinds of things and put them all together. And the race to the moon between the United States and Russia was coordinated by them. It was a race, all right, but it was in fact a real race. They needed the moon very bad to do what they had to do. And so think about it for a moment. Once they gained the moon, there were 6 trips from the United States in the late 60s. I think the last one was 72 or 71 or something like that. I really need to get those dates clear in my mind. But there were 6 of them all together from the United States. And then after the last one, once we got there and we established everything like that, total silence. We don't even talk about the moon anymore. Nobody goes there. Nothing. There's no moon. Doesn't exist. You know. Why? Why haven't we gone there again? You think that we've learned everything about the moon there is to learn? There's another reason why. Is because they needed the moon as a instead of building if you want to go deep into space, if you want to leave the Earth and go somewhere else, with the technology that we have, you need to build a space station or a satellite out there to bring the materials up and everything else like that, to assemble the kinds of things you need to go further if you're going to bring lots of people and materials. But why do that when you already have a satellite up there called the moon? And so they needed to get to the moon to do what they had to do. So the entire world's energies and direction were aimed by the secret government toward just getting to the moon. And then once they got there, then they didn't want you to know anymore. We made 6 trips, but Russia made 2,000 trips. 2,000 trips, a little different. And what they did was they went around the backside of the moon, so we can't see them because the backside stays hidden to us all the time. And they built 3 major installations back there, one of which was a great catastrophe because it collapsed and killed a lot of people. And to assemble all the things that were needed for them leaving the Earth. And then from there, once they got everything in place, everything that they needed to know, and they didn't want, see, while they were doing this, they didn't want your attention on the moon. So that's why they got your attention away from other places. So they did, however, make a very important trip to Mars, which we saw the face on Mars, and mapped every square inch of Mars. They mapped the whole thing except for the 2 poles. They mapped it all out. They wanted a whole thing of it. That was real important too. And then once they got all this together, they went to Mars. That's where they decided to go to, which is only appropriate since they were Martians to go back to where they came from. And that's the planet that they chose. There could have been other places, I guess. Venus wouldn't be very good when you got a 900 degrees surface. But Mars is very could easily keep life, human life there. There's water there. There's lots of water under the surfaces. It's everything that they need in certain ways. And so they went to Mars, and they built complexes there, primarily underground, but not totally. And they built this whole thing. It took many years, and by about I'm really guessing, I don't know the exact time, but somewhere in the 1980s, let's say 1985, that's sort of in the middle, somewhere around in there, they completed the structures and everything they needed. They built a structure that would keep approximately 10,000 people alive indefinitely on Mars, to make a total transformation over to there for as long as is necessary. And of course, who they were bringing was just themselves, their families, and their friends. And once they had the whole thing set up, they just sat back and just basically didn't really care what happened to us, because they figured we didn't stand a chance from their point of view. These are the same people that had, in the early part of this century, very early, probably about 1910 is my guess, made connection with the Greys. And though the Greys had been here earlier than that, the secret government had begun to make contracts with them to allow them to do certain things. I'm going to take back off on that, what the secret government did with the Greys in just a little while, so you can understand all of that. But it's another story. I'll continue on with this one on Mars for a little bit. It's another part of all of this, which is actually still connected to Mars too. And so they built all this stuff. They came back here and said, well, hope you guys make it. And there's no way they can get everybody off the surface, even if they wanted to anyway, so there's nothing they figured they could do. But they didn't really care anyway. And then about a few years ago, and I don't remember the dates and times in this either, it's not real important, but I guess time has really been kind of going by here now. I guess it's been, it was in the late 80s. It was not too long after they completed everything and got it all finished. It was I don't know what it was. I don't remember. It was 87, 88, 89, somewhere around in there. They became aware of something that I'm sure shocked them to their bones. And that was that it isn't just the Earth that is going through a new North and South Pole, but it's all the planets, including Mars, all of them. And so all that work was just for nothing, just a waste of time. At which point is, even though they have technology beyond your imagination, they are technically incredible what they can do and what they can't do, and what they're capable of doing. They still don't have the ability, no more than the Greys do, to leave this place and go to the next octave, which appears to be, by everyone's knowledge, going to be a necessity. Just as if we were, it's just like if we were in an airplane that's about ready to run out of gas, we could all see that we're going to have to land real soon. Well, we're in a situation where we're about to run out of gas, only that's not a real good explanation, and we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to make a change. But the way God has done it is we're going to have to do this all together. The concepts of polarity and good and evil and such, and the ideas that you can just forget about part and move toward another one, won't work in the dynamics of the situation that we're in. And they've become aware of this. And so because of that, they have tried to rethink things, and they have tried to allow certain changes to occur in the world that normally would never be allowed. For example, it began when the allowance of the Berlin Wall to fall down, and all the changes that's been going on in Russia, and all the incredible rapid changes that have been going on politically. I mean, you don't realize how fast things are going. Maybe you do, but usually these kinds of changes don't happen overnight. But they've been happening overnight only because the secret government has allowed them to happen. They've allowed these changes, which have been wanting to be changed anyway by the people, and so they've allowed the situation to continue. If they could ever figure out a way how to leave us behind and make it through, they probably would, still at this point. Though at this point, they're right back to where they were when they first got to Atlantis and joined with us, and that is, they're going to have to learn this feminine side, which they never didn't want to do, and then they decided during Atlantis that they were never going to do that again. None of this allowing stuff to happen, they were going to control everything. And they're coming up to the same conclusion the Greys came up with. It requires both sides. It requires male and female to be able to make this translation. And intellect alone, the male side alone, can't do it alone. And so even though they don't like it, it's the way it is. And so for a long time, when you go back and you look at the stuff that happened when people were finding out about a lot of these things, I can't remember what the films were that came out. MJ-12 and all that stuff that came out, and the films that came out for a while, because what they were doing for a long time is purposely going around and looking for guys like me and people that were becoming aware of the situation and killing them, getting rid of every one of them they could, so that they could continue doing what they're doing. Now it's a total reversal. Now they're going around to all these people and, you want money? Anything we can do for you?